This is Paul Macetta. And if you are interested in learning how to influence or persuade, sell, pitch, convince anyone to do anything, it's absolutely critical that you know how to create rapport with people. So sit down and stay tuned, because in today's video, I'm going to show you some simple ways to instantly create rapport with others. Tony Robbins once said, "We are persuaded by two kinds of people, people that we like and people that we want to be like." Well, guess what? Rapport is directly linked to those two things, right? The more rapport we have with people, the greater the chance that we admire them and trust them and want to be like them. And the more rapport we have with people, the more we actually like those types of people. When it comes to relationships, you have to realize that there are different levels of relationships. So at the very beginning, there's the stranger level, right? Which really isn't even a relationship, so to speak. It's like someone that you just met. You don't know anything about them. So your rapport level with that person is pretty much non-existent, right? And then as you get to know them and as some time goes by, maybe they become an acquaintance. And so now the level of rapport begins to grow a little bit more. And then maybe they become a friend. And now your level of rapport becomes even greater with that person. And then maybe you get to a point where they become a really close friend, someone that you would die for, somebody that if they called you at 3 o'clock in the morning and needed you to bail them out, you would go do it. And so at that point, the way I explain it to people is, in my opinion, at that point, the term rapport kind of goes out the window, because now you have a relationship that's really based on trust and history with someone else. But for everyone else before that, because not everyone in the world is going to be your best friend, and quite frankly, you don't want to be best friends with everyone in the world. So for everyone else that's not a best friend or a really, really close friend that you want to build relationships with, or that you want to influence or persuade at some point in life, you got to learn how to create rapport with these people. And so what I want to share with you today are some simple ways to use NLP to create rapport with people. So the first thing that I want to explain to you, or that I want to share with you, are some different levels of experience that affect your ability to create rapport with other people. So the first one is the places that you frequent. So the places that you like to go on a normal basis. This could be clubs, it could be Starbucks, it could be concerts, it could be sports games. Next is new people that you meet at work or in clubs and organizations that you join. The next one, believe it or not, is your physical appearance. You know, I said this in one of my earlier videos, this bullshit notion of don't judge a book by its cover doesn't make sense. Because even though we tell people not to do that, the reality is that we're hardwired to do that. It dates back to primitive times where we had to quickly assess whether or not another person is a threat to our resources. We still do that. On a very primal, subconscious level, we judge people within the first 3 to 6 seconds of meeting them. And I got news for you. Your physical appearance will be a determining factor in how people judge you. It may not be right, it might not sound moral, but it's the reality. The next is your physical projection. So, two very different things. Your physical appearance is how you look. It's the clothes that you wear, it's how you're groomed, it's your haircut, it's whether or not you have a beard, it's whether or not you're in style or you're keeping up with trends, whether or not your sneakers are dirty. But your physical projection is a completely different thing. So your appearance is kind of like the Christmas tree, right? So if you have a Christmas tree and you have all the ornaments on it, that's your appearance. But the condition of the actual tree is really what your projection is about. So if the tree is kind of slumped over, or the branches are falling off of it, or it starts to look withered, then no matter how good the ornaments are on it, the tree is still going to look a little banged up. There are a lot of people that are like that. They dress immaculate, they look immaculate, but they carry themselves in a very unconfident way. And so that's another thing that will affect your ability to create rapport with people. The next one is your handling of verbal language. So it's how you're able to articulate things, or how you're able to deliver your point when you speak to people, or how well you can communicate a message on a particular topic. The next is your handling of nonverbal language. So when we talk about nonverbal language, it's your body language. And I don't have to tell you this. If you've been studying anything about human communication, you will know that the majority of a message is communicated non-verbally. So regardless of what you're saying out of your mouth, if your physical body language is saying something different, the other person isn't going to trust you. And the reality is that most of the judgment that they're going to make about you is going to be based on your non-verbal movements. The next thing is your current communication skills. So that's kind of like a package of all of those things put together. How you are communicating verbally and non-verbally together. Next is your core beliefs in life. This is a big one. So if your core beliefs in life are radically different than the other person that you're trying to influence or persuade, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to create any sort of rapport with them, because your overall belief, or I should say their overall belief, and the fact that it's different from yours is going to kind of be like this black cloud that's constantly over you, and it's affecting your ability to create rapport with other people. Next are your core values. So these are slightly different than what your core beliefs are, although they do intertwine with one another. And next is your identity as a person. Every single one of us has some sort of an identity that we carry around with us. Now, granted, that identity will change from time to time. Like, in other words, your identity might be slightly different when you're at work than it is when you're out at a football game with your buddies, but your core identity, which is really made up of those core beliefs and those core values, tends to stay the same most of the time. And so if your identity as a person is something that doesn't gel with somebody else, that's going to inhibit your ability to create rapport with them. So, if you want to sharpen your skill in establishing rapport with other people, I want to give you 4 basic steps to help you achieve that. So the first step is, when you interact with somebody else, put some extra effort into being genuinely interested in what they have to say. Now, I've said this in many videos, but the reason I tend to repeat it is because it's extremely important. The majority of people in this world are simply waiting for the other person to be quiet so that they can have their opportunity to talk. That's just the reality of the situation. The people that actually sit down and listen and are genuinely interested in what you have to say are few and far in between. Now, granted, there's exceptions to the rule. If you're extremely close with somebody, if you have a great relationship with somebody, yes, most of the time you are going to be genuinely interested in what they have to say. But remember what I said in the beginning of this video. This is not about those people, because for those people, you really don't need rapport, right? If you call them up and ask them for a favor, they're probably going to do it for you no matter what. I mean, unless you're asking for something that's just totally unreasonable, most of the time they're going to comply. So this is for everybody else. So the challenge here is becoming genuinely interested in people that you don't have a great relationship with, or I should say, not so much of a close relationship with. You haven't reached that stage with them. And that can be challenging to do, because a lot of times people are going to talk to you about stuff that you really don't care about, that you're not interested in. You have to learn to train yourself to become interested in those people, because that's going to immediately make you stand out from the rest of the crowd, from the other 90% of people that don't give them that attention. So ask questions to draw out important information, but at the same time, learn to actively listen so that the other person will see and feel that you are indeed a good communicator. If you're perceived as a good communicator, people around you are going to be comfortable talking to you, and even new acquaintances are going to trust you easier than they will other people. So make it your primary goal to understand where other people are coming from. Now, do not expect other people to exert that same type of effort in understanding you. Because remember what I said, the majority of people out there just do not act that way. So remember that the outcome of all communication efforts depends on you, the speaker, the communicator. So when you set out to talk to somebody, take full responsibility for the outcome of the interaction. Number two is listen closely when they're talking. So observe how they actually express themselves and take note of any special mannerisms or phrases that they use frequently. Use these special elements later on so that you'll slowly be able to match the other person or get in sync with them. So I'm not asking you to mimic people, right? That's different. What I want you to do is focus on matching the other person's energy and then subtly lead them to where you really want them to be. So for example, if the other person's pissed off about something, maybe they got into a traffic jam, try to be a little mad about that situation, or maybe mad about a similar problem, so that you begin to align with their current wavelength. By aligning with their wavelength, you'll be able to influence their behavior and their thinking patterns. The biggest mistake that any communicator can do is try to stop a person from thinking the way or feeling the way that they're feeling instantly. Try that, and I can assure you that all you're going to do is get resistance. So anytime you're around a person who's in a kind of a high emotional state, maybe it's a negative state, maybe they're angry, maybe they're pissed about something, if you try to fan that flame instantly by talking sense into them, it could backfire on you. So instead, you have to immediately align with that person and show them that you're pissed off about something too. You know, one of the greatest ways to create a connection with somebody is to find a common enemy. Now, the enemy doesn't necessarily have to be a person. It could be a situation or a line of thinking. But the minute you match that person in that way, they begin to identify with you, and you lower the resistance and are able to create rapport a lot easier. Number three, determine how the other person processes information. Do they like talking about the big picture, or do they prefer to discuss smaller steps and fine details on the current topic? Once you've determined the other person's preference when it comes to information, you should gradually adjust your own approach so that they'll be able to fully comprehend what you are trying to communicate to them. For example, if you're trying to sell a business owner new software, you need to explain the benefits of the new software in a way that they're fully going to understand. Example, let's say that statistically speaking, 90% of your customers are happy with the purchase of the software. If you're speaking to a left brain type of person and you start going into statistics and data, that's going to resonate really well with that person. But if you're dealing with a more emotional type of a person, or a person that makes decisions based upon the way things feel to them, if you start talking about statistics and data, it's not going to resonate well with those people. So what you'd want to talk about instead of getting into the statistics, is the reason why those people are satisfied with their purchases. So it may be that the employees feel better coming to work because they're able to get things done faster and there's less frustration. Or the customers feel better because they have less hiccups with the service from the employees. So you talk about things that relate more to how someone's gonna feel after they purchase the product, as opposed to just going into statistics and data. So again, speaking in a certain way that resonates with another person is extremely powerful. Now, the last step that I want to share with you is two classic, very well-known NLP techniques called matching and mirroring. So matching and mirroring can be used to measure the existing rapport that you have. It can also be used to create rapport, but the measurement part is really interesting. So to illustrate this, if you watch two best friends when they talk, you'll see how they move and how they banter is wildly different than two strangers. So observe how two best friends communicate with each other. And then ask yourself if you notice something special. What you're actually seeing is matching and mirroring taking place in real time on an unconscious level. One person mirrors the other, and then the second person matches the movement of the other. They do it because they're comfortable, they're happy, and they're at ease. So this is the kind of rapport that you want to have when you're interacting with other people. Now, of course, you can't be best friends with everyone that you talk to, and like I said, you don't want to be. So instead, what you want to do is apply these methods in your own daily interactions. So how can you start using this approach to establishing instant rapport with people? The first thing that you want to do is activate the VAC system. So what we talk about here is the fact that people process information either visually based on what they see, auditory based on what they hear, or kinesthetically, which is basically the way things feel to them. So let your senses run wild and let your imagination do its work. Listen as if this is the first time that you're listening to someone talk. Pay close attention to what the other person is saying and respond not only through verbal language, but through body language. Now observe how the other person talks and moves and try to naturally match what they're doing. The idea here is to slowly start mirroring the other person's gestures and expressions so that later on they'll do the same for you. Once the other person starts matching your movements and expressions, that's when you know that you've actually created rapport. That's when you know that you've actually created that connection with someone. So here are some ways that you can ignite rapport in the conversation without looking like someone who wants to speed up the process of rapport. So first of all, observe the other person's posture. Do they look tense or relaxed? Do they look lazy or confident? Match the person's posture to begin aligning yourself with their wavelength. Next, check their gestures. Do they wave their arms around when they get excited? Do they fiddle with their pen or press their cell phone when they're listening to you? Do they like to gesture with their hands? Are they trying to emphasize important points when they use their hands? Match these gestures when you talk and watch the magic of mirroring take place. A person's breathing rate can reveal their state of mind. A person with a fast breathing rate may be agitated, nervous, or frightened. By matching the other person's breathing rate, you'll be able to pace and eventually lead the person to a more desirable state. So for example, if the other person's breathing fast because they're agitated, increasing your breathing rate will allow you to get their full attention, and then you can start to slow down the breathing rate afterwards. Next one. Measure the other person's energy level. Some people like gesturing from the chest up. These people are what we consider higher energy people who really like to pump things up when they're talking. Other people are so shy that they keep their hands to their sides. They do this so that their voices don't rise too much and they won't sound like they want to take control of an interaction. So if the other person's energy level works for you, then by all means, don't try leading a person to a higher or lower energy level. But if their energy level is too high or too low for your taste, then it might help to first match their energy level so that you can eventually lead them to a more comfortable level. And then the last one is a person's speech rate or their tone. A very excited person is going to speak very fast, like I am right now, because this kind of stuff excites me. And they would also have a higher tone of voice. So ask yourself, how do they speak to you? Why do they speak that way? Is it because they're excited or because they're bored? Are they trying to sound excited so that you won't be offended? Determine those things and make the adjustments needed to make the interaction work. So what you have right there are some classic ways to use NLP to create rapport with other people. And like I said in the beginning of the video, the more level of rapport that you have, the higher the level of relationship you're going to be able to create with other people. Now, if you want to learn some basic NLP foundational concepts or the building blocks of NLP, I'll put a link in the description to my free report, NLP Foundational Concepts. You can grab that and download it at no cost. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, give it a share, and make sure you subscribe. so you get access to more videos like this.